Everyone will be starting with the PR today. So this PR is my own PR at test on the RPCs under test options flag. So the idea behind this PR is that there are a lot of RPCs that we are using in the arguments.cpp. So there are a lot of, like, you can see all the RPCs listed here in init.cpp. There are a lot of them that we can use. So the idea of this PR is that there are a lot of PRs that are specific for dev use only. So if you would like to see this one, mock time, this is a dev only PR. Like, this should not be used in production by any general user or any user except the devs. So the idea was to like make a separation between this kind of, so these PRs that are only dev focused should be included in this just options flag, so that there is a like specific general purpose RPCs and RPCs that are being used by the devs. There are a lot of restrictions that we are setting on this test option. So we are restricting this to be used in the test network only, and not on mainnet, even not on testnet and the signet. There is no particular reason behind it. I guess the reason that I thought of was that regtest gives us a lot of like powers on what we would like to do, and because the only person being affected with that is just ourselves, so we can like go like ham on how we would like to do things on it. So it's better to limit test options to regtest only. But as we have seen in the discussions in the PR that these dev options like are also not likely to be used in the mainnet and all other testnets by the devs. So the conclusion from these comments is that all of these are not only like, these are not test options, but kind of like dev options. These can be used on all the networks, and it should not be the case that they are limited to test networks. The RPCs that must be limited to the test network are supposed to be kind of like, they are like not like really useful in other testnets or other networks that we are going to like push our code to. So if I'd like to like, deprecated method is like one of examples, is a dev focused RPC, but should not be like included in this test option. So the idea behind is the deprecated RPC is used to flag
Is it just me or the screen froze? Robot, if you can hear us, the screen froze. I think there's some internet issue from his and he'll come back in some time.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't get the comment.
The screen froze. We're not able to see your screen.
Okay, let me then
There's some
do.
internet issue from your end, maybe.
Okay. Is it now?
Can you move your mouse? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this deprecated RPC, if we like restrict it to regtest, we would not be able to flag on the network itself that this is going to be deprecated. So that is the reasoning behind it. So some of the some of the RPCs that have been like flagged for dev use also are stop at height and it's deprecated RPCs and these check options. So like they can be a lot more. Like captured messages also one of them. It can be a lot of other RPCs that are that included in the PR, but are like like not particularly useful if we restrict it to the test options. So this is that, and we can now like look into the implementation of the PR. So there are a lot of file changes. We will go commit by commit. Yeah. So the first commit like is adding the RPCs that are using bool arguments with themselves. So we can look if we are like passing an argument, we can pass it like this. So I have specified this convention to write arguments for the RPCs that are included in the test options. And the first commit is to involve the bool argument RPCs in it. So these 5 are the ones that have like bool arguments that are specified when we are like using the RPCs. So this is added in the args.cpp in the test doc option, which was like included in the previous PR when this test option was added. And the second part is like adding the helper functions to extract these bool arguments. So this is like really easy. So first implementation is the optional bool. So we may or may not pass a bool argument. If we are not passing a bool argument, we will return a null object, and then there is no change in the like if there is a value associated with the variable that we are like storing the value of the boolean, uh, there will be no change if the null object is being thrown. If the other is thrown, like if the bool is thrown, the value will be changed to the bool that is thrown out of this function. So the first line just takes out all the options that are included in the test. So there can be many arguments that can be used when we are like using this test RPC. So like to add multiple test RPC options, we can like specify like this test flag with that RPC and its argument, and then do it again for other RPC options. So we can have a number of test RPCs. So to capture those, this line is used, and we iterate over all the options. This function tells us that if from these test options file that we like saw before, if one of the options there is a prefix of the option. Yeah, anybody has a question? Yeah, so Faisal, are you like asking a question? You are not audible if you can. So like I'll go with the PR then.
Should we call my name, Prabhu?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you asking any question?
Yes, I was actually wanted to zoom you, but I don't think that will be of any avail right now. My laptop just ran out of battery, so I'll have to use the phone. So anyhow, I'll not be able to see the text. So you can continue. But maybe if you could zoom, others could see it better because the font is very small.
Okay then. So I guess maybe this is fine. So this line just uh, like checks for the prefix if the test option, one of the test options is a prefix of the options, then this means that that option is being used in the in this code and we'll find the index of this equal to uh, character, and then this is just to interpret the bool argument that is like being used in that test option RPC by the user. And this is just uh, if we are sure to, if you would like to surely have a bool returned, then we can set a default value to that bool. And if this returns a null object, this bool value will be thrown uh, by the function. So we are sure to get a boolean option then. This is just adding it to the headers file, and yeah, so this is just an uh, addition to the code to like support these equal to arguments. So this is that, and there is a diff change.
You're not audible, Prabhu. At least not to me. Can others hear him?
No, can't hear him.
So, Prabhu, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. I think he can't hear us. I,
I'll ping him.
I'll type in the chat and see if he notices. We'll finish the entire session without us hearing a word, it seems.
I think so.
Anybody has his contact number? Because that is what I do with Shreya, and I call him on the phone and say, I can't hear you.
Just have his Discord.
I don't think he's noticing his Discord.
Yeah.
I'll DM once as well. Let's try that as well. I posted in the chat. I DM'd him as well. Now the only option is for us to wait till he realizes that we can't hear him.
I don't think he got the notification. I saw the 77 go to 78 on his tab in Discord. Oh, he's going to the next comment.
I think he's using Discord in the browser. Yeah, he's using Discord in the browser.
Hmm. What happens if I call him?
This is funny.
Did he hear us or like he's still on mute?
No, he's just doing his own thing. He's in his own world. I'm trying this PR review plan.
Do you have any opinions on the PR?
I did a to-do function here. To-do.
He's back.
Oh, we can hear you
Welcome
now.
back. Welcome back after 10 minutes, Probot. We didn't hear a word.
Oh, I'm not audible.
No, you are not. And I DM'd you and I posted in the chat as well. Like almost, I don't know, it's been 8 to 10 minutes you've been disconnected from the rest of the participants.
Oh, I didn't notice that entirely. I was going through the PR. So where did I left off?
I don't have. You'll have to go back to your screen. I think you finished the first part of the first comment where you were talking about bool values, and after that we lost you.
Okay.
How to handle bool values? You were audible till there.
But maybe you can just summarize what each commit is. Like,
Okay, so
I think we saw.
this is where I left off.
Yes.
Okay, so like this is just adding a helper option to like replace the get bool argument for these test options. So the normal get test options are like not useful enough to like extract away the argument since I have changed the implementation for the test options. So this is to account for that. First, I like get all the test options and from the test flags. So there can be a lot of test flags. I can like implement a lot of them. Kind of like I add this test and I'll just add the RPC next, and then I can go on and on adding these test options. So this line checks off if we get a test option that is included in the prefix of any of the options that I've extracted from the test arguments, and if it finds one of them, it checks for if I have a equals to character somewhere, and then I interpret the bool and then throw it out. If this for loop is completed and we found nothing of it, any of it, then there was never a test option set and we return a null object. So whenever we would like to have a bool argument in a definite sense, then we use this function with a default value. Otherwise, we would use this optional bool function. Okay, and then this is this function is being added to the header. and this change is to account for this like change where we are adding arguments to the test options. And yeah, so I now replace all the get bool args with the get test option bools. We add a ArgsManager object and then the original arguments, and we have successfully implemented this change. Okay, so next is these integer argument test options. These options, the ones in the green are the test options that have integer arguments, and we'll be including these in the next commit. So I have a option I have a function to get these int kind of similarly. So I get the options, I iterate over them, I look for if I can find any of the options in the prefix, and then I look for the equals character, and then I pass the int and get the int value that was passed in it. If I like iterate over entire for loop and I don't get anything, then I return a null object. If I definitely want to have a uint64 integer, then I specify default value before, and if it returns a null object, then I get the default value itself. So this is the function being added to the headers, and yeah, then there is the diff change where I'm adding this test equal to before the RPCs. So now these now work with the test options RPC, and they are all the diff changes, and we can now extract this one using this function. So the next commit just changes all the bool arguments. So this is mostly a diff change. All of these get bool arg options, get bool arg functions are now replaced with get test option bools, and I like remove these from these argsman arguments, so there's no conflict. Yeah, so initially this raised this accept still estimate is equal to 1 raised an error of this type, error accept fee estimates is not supported on this chain. So this this error is not being thrown now because there is a error that is higher in priority, like higher in order than this error, which is this error test option can only be used with the drag test. So like if this one passes, this error passes, this will like pass its like if it is not triggered, this error is not triggered, this error will not be triggered itself because that except stale fee estimates was also argument or also RPC that was like specified to regtest only. So now this had to be changed, and then now there's only diff commits of adding test before the RPC.
Hey, I had a question
Nice.
to about I should have asked it earlier, but then you were
Yeah.
on and off. Okay. So the question is pertaining the PR in general. So what I understand is that there are certain RPCs which are specific to devs. Like they are not either they are not used at all or they are very rarely used in and in production. Right? They are specific to testing environments. And what this PR proposes
Yeah.
is that they need to be prepended by a test flag, if I understood it right. Right? You've proposed a
Yeah.
specific format with a test flag and then the command and then the argument. Okay. So which will signify or which will exclude and make these RPCs specific to the test environment, so that when a developer wants to access these RPCs, he specifies this test flag, and then those RPCs will be specific to the regtest, not to the testnet, right? Only to regtest, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, right. Correct.
Okay. So what if like there is an RPC, whatever RPC it could be, like for instance, there is an RPC generate to address, okay, which we use only in regtest to mine blocks immediately. We can't do that on the mainnet. We can't do that on the testnet. That RPC is specific to the regtest, okay. So what if I, let's say if this PR gets merged, and what if I don't specify that flag? I use the previous syntax to issue that RPC command. What will happen? Will the RPC fail, or will there be some unintended behavior? What will be the consequence if I don't if I miss out on using this flag of test?
Yeah, for that flag, if I've not added it to the test options doc specified in the args.cpp, so it should behave normally with the initial way of specifying that flag, and using that with this test option will not work, even though it is uh, even if it has a regtest only specific thing, this get new error, just generate to address isn't being so the other RPCs will not be affected with this test options addition until and unless it is being added to the test option doc in args.cpp.
Okay, so if there is an RPC which is added to it, okay, and just my question is that what if I don't add this? If I use an RPC which is specific to regtest, okay, which is specific to developers, developer use it in regtest, okay, and it falls as a use case of this PR, but I don't add that flag, okay, I don't use this recommended format by you, I don't add that test flag, and I just issue that RPC, and I'm on the mainnet, for instance. What will happen is there an error handling case, or the behavior will revert back to the current behavior?
It will raise an error if it is included in the test options doc and you are using it with the old-fashioned way. Then it will raise an error and that thing will fail.
Okay. And currently, what is the intended behavior if there is an RPC which is specific to regtest and somebody is trying to use that RPC in a production, for instance? Then what happens? Again, you get an error, right?
You are supposed to get an error, but that is not in the scope of the PR because I guess Stratosphere answered in the chat. If
Okay.
you can see. Even I don't know what is the intended behavior if we do that because I've not tried it, but it should revert with an error, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Fine. I'll look into it. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so we are now adding these RPCs that have test integer arguments. And this is also mostly a diff change. So with that, I did a to do here. So I'll explain it in a bit. There is an to do here as well. I'll explain it in the next commit as well because the changes are in the other commit. Otherwise, it's mostly diff change. Test before each RPC. Yeah, it's mostly that. So we can go on to the next commit. Yeah, so according to the previous to do, I added a to do here because of this behavior. So there was a check of like if it is not in the regtest. So this was never getting triggered when I saw it in the code coverage. So I removed this as it was no longer needed. And this argument had a like a really different behavior compared to this line, where it is first like taking the argument as an integer, but after that it is supposed to take it as a string. So I had to add a new function here to take in string arguments and then like parse it. So this is the addition of that function here. Similar to the others, I get all the options, I check the prefix, I find the equal to character, and then I pass the substring, which is like the argument that we are having. If we don't find anything, we return a null object, and we are adding that in the headers. Okay, so after I added it to when I was merging the PR, there was an error where since the testnet 4 was added, there was no bitcoin.conf file being generated just before this line, and not really specific of why this was introduced, but I had to find a workaround. So I go to the directory of the debug log and then create another debug.log proxy kind, like not even a proxy, but I generate a debug.log file myself, and then I start the node. Similarly here as well, I first directory generate the debug.log file myself and then start the node itself. So this was one of the workarounds for this error. Yeah, this is all about the PR. So we can look forward to the questions. As the first question is, what is the need to differentiate between these general purpose RPCs and the test RPCs or the dev RPCs? If anybody would like to answer.
I mean, like there are certain RPCs that are specific to certain environments. So if you use them contrary to what their actual use cases, there might be unintended behaviors. So like there are certain things that you specifically want to do and then confine them to edge test and not to production. If you try and executing those RPCs or use those flags in production, there might be unintended consequences. So it's better to bifurcate using this test flag that it is specific to the test net or the testing network, that is edge test. Hey, can you unmute yourself, Statista, please, if you don't mind? So these
Yes,
are.
can you hear me, or is it broken?
Like, I think you have a huge Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay, she's not. Hey, you're back, Statista. So these are flags, right, Probot? So if I want to set a specific value to any specific flag, right? I need to go to my bitcoin.conf file and use that test flag in the bitcoin.conf file.
Yeah, kind of like that.
All right. Yeah.
Generator address is like what we use in Bitcoin CLI, and we are like these are to be put in the bitcoin.conf file.
Okay, yeah, all right, got it. Yeah, so the answer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. So, but the answer is I hope you got the answer right, because I mean, if you are specifying it, then it's obvious that it is used for that specific use case, or only for testing purpose, and so that it does not lead to unintended consequences in behaviors. That is what I could think of.
Yeah, like that is exactly why we are differentiating it. The user might not know, like the user will never look into the code base to check for which flag what the flag does in actuality, and will always prefer docs. And even though the docs are supposed to specify if the option is dev only or the general purpose RPC, he or she might like confuse, or like might not even bother to look into docs if he or she is like using the RPC. So it can cause problems, and yeah, not RPCs. The config flags, and it might be an like issue if it happens.
Right. Fine. Thanks.
And then like, how do we identify if one of the flags is dev only or not? Like it is a really small thing to notice if anybody was able to look up.
I think you mentioned it yourself. Is it the test only RPCs with uh, ArgsManager, debug only, and debug test? Is
Yeah,
it?
the in the conversation itself for this PR I have mentioned which of the test flags I have like chosen as the test only ones. So the one with the debug only option and a debug test option, I've chosen them as test only.
Right.
Like not the test only, but the dev only flags.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Also, the last question is why would we like to limit the test options to only regtest or not test networks? Just not using it not on mainnet. Why would we do something like that?
By other testnets, you mean like signets, testnet, everything, like everything excluding regtest.
Yeah, like no, not regtest, everything excluding mainnet.
Right, everything excluding mainnet. What does it mean? Uh, Everything excluding the mainnet. What is the need to limit test RPC to and not other testnets?
Like we are currently limiting it to only regtest.
Only regtest, right?
Yeah. Why not like these are test only options? Why not include the test networks too?
I can't think of an answer. I can, but I think it will be too silly, so I'd rather not say.
Like there are no silly answers.
No, this one is too silly. This is actually silly.
Now I'm very curious what it is. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I don't know. I went through the PR like 30 minutes ago. Because regtest, like you have complete control over a regtest, right? You can do whatever you want. You can mine as many blocks as you want instantaneously. But other networks have rules. Like you don't set rules for other networks. Signet has its own rules. Testnet has its own rules. Mainnet has its own rules. You cannot completely customize that. But with regtest, you like completely customize and do whatever you want.
That's a valid answer. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
kind of like that.
Yeah, this answer makes sense. To like,
One more thing I wanted to add was like you mentioned like thinking of these options only based on the networks, but like the dev testing options can do anything. Like they could be config flags to help with benchmarking. So when I went through your PR, I actually went and looked up what those RPCs did, because like as those devs counted, even just using debug only wasn't apparently a good enough indicator, because the debug RPCs which they mentioned could be even for like benchmarking things, and some stuff are just printing more debug information. Then for new features when they release, they just want some extra customization so that they can test stuff better. And interestingly, I realized that even some of the options, like for example, the limit ancestor count, even though it started off as something dev only, like even like users started taking those options and actually using it in whatever mainnet, testnet, signet, and obviously all these testnet, signet is much more realistic than regtest. So I was just trying to say that it's not just based on chains. The dev testing options can be also just printing more debug information or used for benchmarking and things like that.
yeah, thank you for the answer. These are all the questions I had like for this session. If anybody has any other questions he or she would like to ask, they can do now.
Hey, I had a question. Can you go to the actual PR, not on Bitshala's GitHub, but actually?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Are you on the actual PR page, not on Bitshala's GitHub?
Okay, wait a second. I'll just share my screen. So yeah, so where would you like me to go?
To the PR itself.
Okay.
30717.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says the current implementation of test only RPCs follow this convention: test, command, argument. This is the current convention, or this is the
Yeah, this is
proposed
the
convention in the
convention.
PR?
This is the convention I created to like have arguments to the PR.
So this is the
Like, have
convention that
arguments to
your
the
PR
test.
proposes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all right, fine. So this is what your PR proposes. All right, yeah.
Yeah, like I couldn't find anything better. Like they can be other characters that I could put here, but like it's open to argument.
Right. Yeah, that is all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we can close off the session.
Thanks a lot, Robot, and thanks a lot, everyone, for showing up. Good
Yeah,
night
thank
from
you,
my end.
everyone.
I don't have any questions.